All right, class, let's take a look where we're at. Remember, we are at the last section. We're at section 3.4. Part 1. Part 1 is just an introduction to quadratics, okay? Just do we know what a quadratic is? Can we work with it a little bit, okay? A, we did factoring and we just started the quadratic formula. And B, we're going to finish up the quadratic formula and talk about the graph of a quadratic, okay, including vertex and roots, okay? And then that will conclude part 1. And then parts 2 and 3, we're actually going to use quadratics and word problems, or the word problem will involve a quadratic, okay? So where are we? Look at video 1 to start part 1, dealing with factoring and quadratics formula. We're going to start in the middle now. We're going to finish up quadratic formula, and then we're going to do graphing. Okay. All right, so let's take a look. Let's put this up next. What is this guy? This is the quadratic formula. Quadratic formula. Okay, you need to know that. I think I actually give it to you, but this is what we're going to be using, quadratic formula. If something doesn't factor, then you got to use a quadratic formula. A comes from the number in front of the x squared, B comes from the number in front of the x, C is the number all by itself, and it has to equal 0 before you start using the quadratic formula. Okay. All right, so we said we were in the middle. We did one example in A. So let's do this second example. All right, first of all, what's wrong with this? I don't have one side 0. Whether I'm going to factor or use the quadratic formula, one side must be 0. So I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides. Okay. None of this goes together. I got the three things, so I'm just going to write it x squared minus 7x and then plus 2. 2 is positive. Look in front, and then it equals 0. Okay, so now I am in good shape. I could try to factor this, but I'm going to tell you it doesn't factor. So we're going to do the quadratic formula. Tell me what is A, tell me what is B, tell me what is C. A is the number in front of the x squared. If there is no number, it is a 1. B, you must take the sign with. So B is negative 7. And then C is 2. Okay, and then we plug it into the formula. I could write it up here real quick. Negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You just simply plug it into that formula. So x equals the opposite of b. The opposite of b. So if it is negative 7, I'm going to write down positive 7. Plus or minus the square root of b, which is a negative 7, but you must square everything. Notice I'm squaring that negative, so it will be a positive 49. You must make sure that you square that negative. Minus 4 times a, which is a 1, times c, which is a 2. Okay. And then all over 2 times a, and a is a 1. Just take your time and plug it in. Look here, take it from here, write it down. Look here, take it from here, write it down. Okay, x equals 7 plus or minus the square root. You can type this whole thing into your calculator at once. You can do it in pieces. Make sure these parentheses are very important. This is a positive 49. Negative 7 times negative 7 is a positive 49. Okay, and then minus 4 times 1 times 2, which is 8. Okay, all over 2 times 1, which is 2. Okay, and so that gives us 7 plus or minus the square root of 41 over 2. Okay, if you do that all at once and get 41, that's fine. Okay, I'm not looking for the decimal answer. On WebAssign, you must type it in. Remember, you can't type in plus or minus, but it's a good reminder of what plus or minus means. So you're going to type in 7 plus the square root of 41 divided by 2, comma, 7 minus the square root of 41 divided by 2. Okay, you must type both of those in. Make sure that you pick up, the very first thing you're going to pick up is the fraction key. Go to the right and click in the box And then on the right, you'll pick up the fraction key. And then you'll do 7 plus, and then you'll hit the square root 41, and then just jump to the bottom and hit 2. Okay, if you hit the fraction key first, that'll take care of the divided by. You must do it 2 separate answers. Okay, this one's a little bit harder. Let's take a look at this one. First of all, it is not ready to go. It looks like it, x squared, x in the number, but the number's on the wrong side. So you have to take the time to subtract the 6 to the correct side. It doesn't go with anything, so we have 3x squared plus 2x minus 6 equals 0. But you have to take the time to move that to the other side. Okay. All right, so now what is A? Once one side equals 0, then you're ready to go. What is A? What is B? What is C? Make sure that this guy gets moved to the other side. A is 3, B is 2, but what is C? Once it's on the correct side, C is negative 6. Okay. All right, then we're ready to go. Opposite, can you still see it? Yep. Opposite of B, so you look up here, find it, plug it in. So x equals opposite of B, so just change the sign, plus or minus, which is eventually going to give us 2 answers, B squared. So 2 squared minus 4 times A, which is a 3, and C, which is a negative 6. All over 2A, but A is 3. Okay, now this is an important one. It's going to simplify, but you had to be careful. Okay, so negative 2, or x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root. And again, if you just type this all into your calculator, that's fine. If you want to do it in pieces, this gives you a 4. The 2 negatives takes you to plus. And then 4 times 3 times 6. So 12 times 6 gives us what, 72? Yeah, that looks good, 72, okay. All over 2 times 3, which gives us 6, okay. Do not cancel these yet, okay. Negative 2 plus or minus, if you typed it all in at once, you get the square root of 76 over 6, okay. These still cannot cancel. You have to see, this is the first one where you have to see if you can simplify the square root of 76. Go off to the side. Now, it's even, so 2 goes into it. But I always like to try 4, because 4 is a perfect square. So, and then if 4 doesn't work, then I go back to 2. But I think 4 actually goes into it. If 4 doesn't, then I definitely know 2 will. Just because it's even doesn't mean 4 will go into it, but 4 is a perfect square when you're dealing with square roots, so it's always nice to try. If you do 76 divided by 4, you get 19. Okay. What is the square root of 4? 2. All right, so you have x equals negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 4 becomes 2, and then you still have the square root of 19 all over 6. Okay. So this 2 came from the square root of 4, which was part of the square root of 76. So this and this are now the same. Okay, now it's okay to cancel in all 3 places. You must cancel in all 3 places. Notice I cannot, 2 things. I cannot just cancel these guys, and I cannot cancel it with 76. I must have a number outside of the square root. You must take the time to see if this, you can simplify it. I cannot do 2 and 6, absolutely not. I cannot do 2, 76 and 6. I must be able to simplify this and take a number out. Now I can cancel. So this becomes negative 1. This one is optional because there's more to it. This one I absolutely need because there's nothing else here. But because I have the square root, I don't have to write that 1. And then over 6. Okay. This one I don't have to write because I got more with it. This guy's all by itself, so I have to write the 1 no matter what. Okay. And then don't forget, whoa. This, we're canceling, right? This goes to 1, this goes to 1. What does this guy go to? This guy goes to 2, goes into it 3 times. This guy should be a 3. we're reducing. We got to reduce all 3 places, so that guy has to go to 3. We have to rewrite it again anyways because of this plus or minus, so -1 plus the square root of 19 over 3, because we're simplifying. Let me sneak it up here. And then comma, -1 minus the square root of 19 over 3. Okay. Good, so we got to cancel, sorry about that, we got to cancel all 3 places, so that guy gets to go down as well. Good. All right, then let's just take a look at one that's kind of nice. Let's see, I thought I had it. Let's see, it is this guy. All right, remember your note sheet, I just had to write it out, but that's okay. If there's decimals, we're just going to answer with decimals. So that might be a little bit easier for some of you. It's all set up, ready to go. One side is 0. What is A? What is B? And what is C? Okay, A is 1. If there's no number in front, it's a 1. B, make sure you take the sign with -3.2. Same with C. C is also negative, -4.1. Okay. And then remember, I'll just write it real quick, opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared, minus 4AC, all over 2A. Okay? Look, take, plug it in. Look, take, plug it in. So X equals opposite of B, so I actually changed that to +3.2, plus or minus the square root of B, which is -3.2, but I square everything, including that negative, minus 4 times A, which is a 1, and C, which is a -4.1. Okay. All over 2 times A, which is a 1. Okay, and then 3.2 plus or minus the square root all over 2. I can multiply those together right away. Grab a calculator, just type that all in. You can do it in parts, but otherwise, if you just want to type it all in, you should get 26.64. Let's see, and I think this shows up. I was going to grab the other calculator because I think that's better, but notice in parentheses, -3.2 squared minus 4 times 1 times a -4.1. Okay, so I just typed this whole thing in, and that's where I got the 26.64. Now, because it's decimals, we're not going to answer it like this. We're going to go ahead and work it out. So we're going to do 3.2 plus the square root of 26.64, and then divide that by 2, and then we're going to do 3.2 minus the square root of 26.64 divided by 2. But we're actually going to work that out. So I'm going to do 3.2 plus the square root of 26.64, okay, and then I'm going to hit enter, and then divide by 2. So I'm going to round to 2 places, so I'm going to answer 4.18. So if there's decimals in the problem, it'll say in the directions round to 2 places. Okay. All right, let's try this one. 3.2 minus the square root of 26.64. I like to hit enter and then divide by 2. And that gives us -0.98. Okay. All right. So those, for that one, like I said, if it starts with decimals, then we're just going to answer in decimals. Okay. Beautiful. Okay, so now let's take a look at, I was going to start part B here, but that other video was a little long. So this is still part B, though. If you're kind of, where are we? We're on page 4 of the note sheet. Okay, I'm going to turn there now because my note sheet does follow. Okay, so we did quadratic. The last part we have to do is, what does the graph look like? What does the graph of a quadratic look like? Does anyone know? The graph of a quadratic function is a parabola. A parabola. Okay, what does a parabola look like? I'm going to put it on an XY coordinate plane, but a parabola looks like this, right? Kind of curves down and then curves right back up. Okay, it is symmetric, so if I cut it in half, it would be symmetric. This point down here, what's this bottom point called? Or it could be, if I do the parabola like this, okay, This bottom point or top point is the vertex. This is the vertex. And then the reason I drew it like this is where it goes through the x-axis, those are the zeros or the roots. I'm going to write roots. I'm going to put an arrow. Okay, same thing. I'll write, and even below, above that, I'll write zeros. Zeros and roots are the same thing. Okay, and those land on the x-axis. Okay, the roots or the zeros are where the graph crosses the x-axis. So these here are the roots. Okay, it's where the graph crosses, let's write that, where graph crosses x-axis. Okay, can we see that? Yeah, we can see that. Okay. Okay, how do we find the roots? We set it equal to 0. Okay, so when we were doing all that factoring and all that quadratic formula stuff, one side always had to be 0. So we were finding, not only were we finding x, but we were finding the roots and the zeros. Okay. All right, to find the vertex, it's a little bit harder. To find the vertex, you had to do negative b over 2a. And then you take that value, you plug that in for x, and that'll give you y. Plug into x to find y. You take this and you plug it in for x, and that'll give you y. Okay, and we'll do some examples, so don't panic. Remember, all of this, maybe I could even put it up here, all of this is based off of y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, a quadratic function, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, graphs these parabolas. Okay, and where do I get b and a? B and a. Okay. All right, let's do one more thing and then we'll just do a few. Okay, good, here it is. Just a little bit of information. A parabola, we saw earlier, how does a parabola, remember, a parabola can open up or it can open down. Okay, for it to open up, a has to be positive. A is positive. Okay, there's also another way though. Let's take a look. Let's draw one more. The vertex will be here and your zeros or roots will be here, right? Then you only have one option. You start at the vertex, you go through the zeros, and it's automatically going to open up. But a little hint is a will be positive. Okay, how do we get a parabola to open down? A is negative. A is negative. All right, but let's also take a look at the graph. If this is your vertex and your zeros are here, you don't have much choice, right? If the parabola has to start at the vertex and go through the zeros, maybe I didn't draw this one quite great, but then it's going to have to open down. But a will also be negative. That's kind of a little hint. Okay, vertex here, another hint or kind of vertex. Vertex is highest point. Okay, and here vertex is lowest point. Vertex is lowest point. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's take a look. We're going to find the vertex, we're going to find the roots, and then we're supposed to sketch a graph. We will not be able to sketch a graph on WebAssign, but I think it'll just help. Remember, we're just doing this so that we can do word problems next, so it might help to sketch a graph. We've got 3 of these. All right, so here's our first equation. To find the vertex, we're going to do negative b over 2a, and then we're going to plug it in to get y. Okay, so let's identify what is a, what is b, what is c. Okay, a is 1, b, take the sign with, is positive 2, c is negative 3. Okay, but to find this point, to find the vertex, we're going to do negative b, so negative 2, over 2 times a, which is 1. Okay. And so that simplifies, right? That's negative 2 over 2, which is negative 1. So that's my x-coordinate. Now, to find y, I take negative 1 and I plug it in. So now I'm going to do negative 1 squaring everything plus 2 times negative 1 minus 3. Okay, so this actually gives me, and you can just type it into your calculator if you want, this gives me 1 minus 2 minus 3. And so that gives me negative 4. And so that is my vertex. I find x, and then I plug it in, and that gives me y. So that is my vertex. Okay. All right, now how do I find the roots? To find the roots, I set this equal to 0. I create an equation. So I'm going to put a 0 in for y. 0 equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. And that's why we spent some time factoring. You either factor this or quadratic formula. You put a 0 in for the roots, you let y equal 0. Okay. So I think this factors. What multiplies to negative 3 but adds to be 2? Multiply to negative 3 but adds to be 2. So that is what? X positive 3 and x minus 1. Multiplies to negative 3. 3 plus a negative 1 takes me to 2. Okay, so then that means x equals, we can take our shortcut if we want, negative 3 and positive 1. Okay, so if we want to sketch this, I'm going to go to negative 4, or negative 1, negative 4, x, y. So negative 1, negative 4. We can just do kind of a general negative. Oh, what am I doing? Get out of here. Negative 1, negative 4. That would be better. This is negative 1. And you can just, if you don't mark it off, that's okay. We're just kind of sketching anyways. Where do these go? These go on the x-axis. They have to go on the x-axis, okay? So they go to 1 and then negative 3. Oh dear, no, I don't need that. Oh my goodness. Let's try this again. Negative 3, so I have to start here. 1, 2, 3. So negative 3, positive 1. Draw it up. Okay. What else? A was positive, so does it make sense that it's opening up? Okay. And this, I just literally go to negative 3, if I could actually do it right. Negative 3, 1, 2, 3. This goes to 1. And then my vertex was at negative 1, negative 4. Okay. All right, we got 2 more graphs, remember, so we can do that. And we're kind of, at least in the end, we did okay because my graph was going up. And it should be symmetric. So if I got too far over here, if I plugged that one in, I might realize at some point that it wasn't symmetric. All right, let's try 2 more. All right, so we are supposed to find the vertex, the roots, and graph. Okay, we got 2 more. So vertex, we're going to do negative b over 2a. All right. What is a? What is b? And what is c? A is negative 1. Make sure you take the sign with. B is 5. C is negative 4. Okay. All right, so negative b, so negative 5 over 2 times a. All right, over 2 times a, and a was negative 1. So this one isn't quite as nice. Decimal is okay. The 2 negatives cancel. And so we do get 5 halves. And if you'd rather do it as 2.5, that's more than fine. Okay, usually in higher math, we like the fractions, but realistically, we kind of like the decimals. Okay, so now we're going to take 2.5 and plug it in here. Just be careful. We are doing, there just happens to be a negative, and then 2.5 is getting squared. X is a positive 2.5, so that negative has to stay out. 5 times 2.5, and then minus 4. Okay, so if we type that all into our calculator, make sure that the parentheses, very important that you square 2.5 and then make it negative. You should get 2.25. Okay, this here, including that negative on the outside, should give you 2.25. Okay, so that's how about, this one's a little bit harder. Okay, so that's the vertex. All right, how about the roots? For the roots, we let y equal 0. Negative x squared plus 5x minus 4. This one's a little bit trickier. We always like this to be a positive 1. So the very first thing we're going to do here is we're going to take out a negative 1. And that changes every sign. So this becomes now positive x squared, this becomes minus 5x, and then this becomes positive 4. So if that x squared is negative, you want to take out a negative 1 and change every sign. Okay. All right, now when I factor, it has to multiply. Now that I changed everything, it has to multiply to give me positive 4, but add to be negative 5. Okay, and I think that's what x minus 4 and x minus 1. When you multiply those two together, you get positive 4, but when you add them, you get negative 5. This, as far as finding x, this has no impact on finding x. So x is still, change the sign, 4 and 1. Okay, this does not get involved as far as finding the x. Okay, and those are the roots. Find the roots. Okay, so now let's graph this. Let's see if I can graph this correctly, right? So we are at 2.5. So I'm going to mark, okay, so let me mark this off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so 2.5 on the x, and then 2.25 just up there. Again, it's just general. As long as I can plot these correctly, I'll be okay. All right, and then I'm going to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not a point. This is a point. This is not a point. This is 2x value. So I'm going to 4, and then I'm going to 1. Okay. The A was negative, so does it make sense that it is opening down? Okay. Good. All right, let's make it just a little bit harder with decimals, but we're just going to do the exact same thing for the vertex. What is A, what is B, and what is C? Okay. The vertex 3.2, or A is 3.2. Make sure you take the negative 4.7 and negative 1.9. Okay, vertex is negative B over 2A. Negative B, so notice that I changed the sign, so it's actually 4.7 opposite of B. So we're actually going to make it 4.7 over 2 times A, which is 3.2. All right, so just grab a calculator, and that should give you, we're just going to round to 2 places, 0.73. Okay. All right, and then to find y, we're going to do 3.2, and we're going to take 0.73 and square it. It's just a little messier with the decimals. Just take your time. Negative 4.7 times 0.73, and then minus 1.9. Okay, just redo this. Wherever there's an x, I put in 0.73. Okay, and that should take us to negative 3.63. And so that's our vertex. Now, for the roots, I let y equal 0. What am I going to have to do here? If it doesn't factor, what do I have to do? If it doesn't factor, we get to do quadratic formula to find those zeros. Okay, so if it doesn't factor, then we got to do quadratic formula. How do we solve this for x when we've got x squared and one side is 0? If it doesn't factor, quadratic formula. X equals I could write it up here. Opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. Let me move my hand all over 2a. Okay, so just kind of put that off to the side there. I might need a little bit more paper. We're almost done though. Okay, we're doing good. Okay, and this ABC, I can use this again. Same ABC, so I don't have to rewrite that. Opposite of B, so 4.7 plus or minus the square root of B squared, take the negative and square it, okay, minus 4 times A, and then times C. Okay, all over 2 times A. Okay. All right, so let's slide it up. We got just a little bit more work. Let's not lose this guy. This is my vertex, because when I go to graph it, I'm going to need that. Okay, so we'll come back to that, but let's just slide it up. All right, so now let's just clean this up. X equals 4.7 plus or minus the square root all over 2 times 3.2. We could do that, 6.4. Okay, let's type this in. So let's do, I'll show you. I don't know if it's how good it shows up, but I'm going to do negative 4.7 and square it. And then minus 4 times 3.2 times negative 1.9. Okay, so I typed that whole thing in, and I should have got 46.41. Okay, we're going to do decimal answers. So now I'm going to do 4.7 plus the square root of 46.41 and divide by 6.4. And then I'm going to do it one more time with minus. Okay, we're going to just type it in. We're going to get decimal answers. So 4.7 plus the square root of 46.41. I hit enter first and then divide by 2. Oh, not divide by 2. What am I saying? Divide by 6.4. Let's try it again. 4.7 plus the square root of 46.41. Enter. And then I have to divide by 6.4. So that gives me 1 point. We could just round 1.8. All right, let's try it again. 4.7 minus the square root of 46.41. All right, and then this time I'm dividing by 6.4. Make sure I divide by 6.4, and I get negative 0.33. Okay, those are my roots. Okay. All right, so let's finish it up real quick. Let's do, let me mark off 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, you don't have to graph. It's just kind of a visual to help you. All right, can we still see this? Yeah. So 7, so almost 1, and then negative 1, 2, 3, roughly 3.5, something like that. Okay, that's my vertex. That's my vertex. All right, now these are the 2 values on the x-axis. So almost 2, and then a little bit negative, a little bit over here. Okay. All right, and I could double check. Can you see this? A was positive, so it should be opening up. Vertex is here, and it opens up. It's kind of thin, and that's okay. All right, this side didn't go as nicely, but there you go. Okay. The roots are the points on the x-axis, and then the vertex is an x comma y value, x, y. Okay, and then these are 2 values on the x-axis. Okay, but you don't actually have to graph. You just have to find, for your homework, you just have to find the vertex and the roots. Okay, give that a try. That's the introduction to quadratics, and then the next couple lessons we'll actually use quadratics will pop up in word problems. And that's our last thing. That's it, guys.